Hello, my name is Kit Brooks, Japan Foundation Assistant Curator of Japanese Art at the Freer in Sackler, the Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art. Welcome to Look and Listen. What you just heard was a traditional shamisen piece called Tokkuriyoshi, or Bottoms Up, one of his family's late Edo period Toyo Akimoto songs, performed by our guest today, Tatsu Aoki, and accompanied by his two daughters, Kyoto and Miyumi. Tatsu-san grew up in an extended family of geisha practitioners, active in the Yotsuya district of Tokyo. He joins us from Chicago, where he has long been sought after as a shamisen artist, creative musician, and filmmaker. In addition to performing widely, he directs the Chicago Asian American Jazz Festival, the Asian Improv Arts Midwest, the Toyoaki Shamisen Arts Residencies, and the annual Tsukasa Taiko Legacy event at the Edlis Neeson Theatre at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Chicago. The geisha world of Tatsu-san's youth is just one of the many contexts where the shamisen has played a central role, and the instrument has been played in a wide variety of groups since its importation into the mainland of Japan sometime in the 16th century. Although this screen is a later version, it recreates the composition of a famous early 17th century work, the Hikone screen, or Hikone Byobu. Here, in a slightly different combination, these three figures show a young man, a woman, and an older blind man playing shamisen together before a folding screen of an inked landscape with towering mountains and thick pine forests. The models from this painting are important, and we will see the same poses repeated in later works. The figures are in close proximity and strumming with their fingers, without using the spatula-shaped plectrum, or bachi, that is common in Japan and which amplifies the sound. The other figures on the screen don't appear to be paying special attention to the group, so it is unlikely to be a formal performance of any kind. With their loose robes and relaxed poses, the shamisen players on this screen reflect the casual, flexible, improvisational styles associated with the early reception of the instrument into Japan. In this painting of a puppet play, the audience of women is separated from the male performers by this transparent screen. We can just see the plectrum in the shamisen player's right hand, who is seen from behind like the female figure in the previous screen. The artist, Okumura Masanobu, was an innovator in prints and paintings of this period, introducing new formats and styles, and even establishing his own publishing house. One type of work he excelled at was the ukie, or floating picture, a term that refers to works like this, that radically emphasize the vanishing point perspective. Here it has the effect of telescoping our view, and we can't help but imagine this expansive space and what the acoustics might have been like.
Kito-san, thank you very much. It was a really, really great representation of a formal and a casual shamisen music. Now it's time for me to introduce you to the more formal style of nagauta shamisen playing, and we have a guest from Tokyo, Japan, Grandmaster Chizuru Kineya.
My name is Chizuru Kineya. I am nagauta shamisen player. Nagauta is one of shamisen Japanese music, and it is played with kabuki, which is traditional Japanese opera. Now I will play the song of very famous and popular kabuki program, Kanjincho. The story is about samurai Yoshitsune Minamoto and his soldier Benkei. The beginning phrase is called Ozatsuma, which represents bravery. This phrase is one of symbolic and typical nagauta shamisen phrases. Ho! E. Hop. Yop. Yo. I.
Thank you, Chizuru Sensei. That was a wonderful music and very formal, nice nagauta music. And now we're going to talk about a little bit about casual improvisation, formulated improvisation in our household here in Toyoaki family. And this is the idea of improvisation and formulated improvisation called Mawashi. And Mawashi is the vamp that people play. It's sort of a rhythm accompaniment for the solo player to play solo over the vamp. And we call it suji, or sometimes it's called tama. And there's a very, very distinctive Toyoaki family's Mawashi vamp called hikkake. That was a hikkake mawashi, and I'm going to show you another one from a very famous samurai song, a drunken samurai song called Kuludabushi. And this happens right in the middle of the famous song. Here's the part. Here's an example of another mawashi coming from our house music, Toyoaki house music called kakinabe. And this is the right in the middle of the song, and somebody always plays solo over this vamp.
you, Tatsu-san, and your family, for showing us how improvisation works in your family's tradition. When the shamisen was first introduced to Japan, it was taken up by blind players of the biwa, another stringed instrument that had already been present in Japan for several centuries. These performers established guilds and were highly regarded for their repertoire and improvisational skills. We saw one blind player in a screen earlier, and we can see another in this woodblock print from the 1920s by Furuya Taiken. This night scene is different from that jovial group we saw on the screen. The lone, wandering player is the only figure in the composition, though the illumination coming from the buildings hints at signs of life inside. The style of shamisen music played by blind, itinerant performers is usually tsugaru shamisen, or shamisen from the Tsugaru region in the north of Japan, where the tradition flourished. We are fortunate to have it performed by a rising new star of tsugaru shamisen music, Nobuto Yamanaka, who specializes in this style and has performed in 36 countries worldwide. The piece is called Tsugaru Kuludabushi.
My name is Nobuto Yamanaka. I'm a tsugaru shamisen player. This is called tsugaru shamisen.
Thank you, Yamanaka-san, for that beautiful piece. Now, let's turn to the more practical matter of how these instruments are made and transported. The archives at the Freer Gallery of Art also include around 600 photographs taken in Japan during the late 19th century in the Rosen collection. This image shows a group of people gathered around a shamisen being made as an animal hide is being stretched across the wooden soundbox. People like this, whose occupations involved working with death, here a skinned animal, were treated as outcasts and their lives were rarely documented. The photographer, Suzuki Shinichi, was based at a studio in Yokohama, but also travelled to photograph different sites and professions. The workers are clearly aware of him, but the blurred face of the figure on the left shows that one subject couldn't stay still quite long enough to capture a clear image. Of course, when a player receives an instrument, it still needs tuning before it is ready to play. Here, Katsushika Hokusai captures a moment of deep focus as a player concentrates on getting the sound just right, and she seems totally unaware that anyone could be watching her. In the Western art tradition, we often think that loose sketches like this were made from life, with the artist drawing directly from a model posed in front of them. However, in pre-modern Japanese art, we can't make that assumption. Sketches like this could be made from life, but they could also be made from memory or from the imagination. Hokusai famously sketched every single day to improve his skills and as a kind of meditative practice, and this work could easily be one of those, although her expression does seem uncannily accurate. We've seen a number of examples already of shamisen in artworks, but how about an artwork that is part of a shamisen? This unusual piece depicts a branch of a blossoming plum tree, which has been painted in black sumi ink onto the surface of a shamisen skin. The artist is Fukae Roshu, and we only know a little about him, that he was active in Kyoto and that he had family connections that allowed him to study with the Rinpa master, Ogata Korin. In this work, the rough texture of the catgut used to make the skin of the shamisen has caused the ink to pool in such a way that it invokes the rough feeling of the plum bark. It's likely that this painting was made on the spot at a gathering of friends, eating, drinking, and composing poetry, as a memento of the time that they spent together. Now I'll pass it back to you, Tatsu-san, to lead a demonstration of the remarkable craftsmanship of the shamisen and how it allows for speedy assembly and disassembly.
Here's something people may not know about shamisen. Shamisen comes in 3 parts, 1, 2, 3. And we can assemble and disassemble. And here's Chizuru sensei taking the bridge out of the body and loosening the strings and taking the bottom ribbon parts called nail and wrapping around to the top parts of the shamisen. And we tap it so that the first parts of the shamisen pops up. Then tap it again to the middle part and the body. And we have this small wood block called karitsugi to protect the each end of the each parts of the shamisen. And because it's very, very detailed and precise woodcraft, and we want to protect them. And we're putting these 4 pieces of karitsugi into the each parts of the shamisen. And now Yamanaka-san is putting the top part of the shamisen into the case and tying it out there. Middle part of the neck. And finally, the bottom, which is the body of the shamisen. And we put it in the rice paper first to keep and control the moisture and put it in the back. And after that, they are all ready to be put into this traveling case, which is kind of like a suitcase. Here's mine, and I put the top part first, then the body, then the middle part. And I have a bachi in my bachi case and the bridge in the bridge case. And I am
all ready to go. And here it is.
Thank you, Tatsu-san, Yamanaka-san, and Chizuru-sensei for that demonstration. I never imagined that a shamisen not only had 3 strings, but that it also came in 3 pieces. For most of us, when we think of shamisen players in art, we imagine this kind of gorgeous scene. It's a richly detailed work by an influential artist of the Kitagawa school. Gold has been used to delineate the strings of the shamisen, and splashes of gofun, or shell white pigment, have been used for the snow, contrasting the cold outside with the warm interior. 3 female entertainers are hosting 2 male clients. We can tell that the women are not sex workers because their waist sashes, or obi, are tied in the back and not in the front. Like much of ukiyo-e, the scene is about anticipation, and the group is likely waiting for the star guest, the oiran, a high-ranking female entertainer, to arrive. Shamisen players would keep visitors engaged with lively music while they waited for other performers, and also provided a soundtrack that permeated throughout the whole district. I'm delighted to welcome back Kineya Chizuru, who will play for us music that conjures up the animated world of the Yoshiwara. We can imagine ourselves together with the revelers at this winter party, waiting to hear the sounds of the oiran's promenade and anticipating her appearance.
Thank you, Kitto-san. The song is the collection of the parts from nagauta songs Yoshiwara Suzume and Sansagari Sawagi. Each phrase represents Edo town, Geisha party, and Yoshiwara. Yoshiwara is special red light district, which was admitted by the government. The beginning phrase is named Sugagaki. This phrase symbolizes the atmosphere of Yoshiwara town, and it is always played on the scene of Yoshiwara in kabuki or nagauta performances. Yo. Oh.
I hope music transported you to a fantasy world of Yoshiwara. And now I'm going to be talking about one of the routine from our family called Oma. It's a big space, and what it does is give you the invitation to a different experience of the space by playing little shamisen line, and usually very slow, and it's invitation to the sensual moment in the music.
Thank you, Tatsu-san. Your music really helps us to imagine the world of the women in these images. One of the masterpieces at the museum is this painting by Kitagawa Utamaro, a legendary figure in the history of ukiyo-e, who is especially well known for his portrayals of women. Among the many figures in this busy scene, right at the center of the action, we can see the conventional triad of traditional Japanese stringed instruments, the shamisen, the koto, and the kokyu. Though our attention as viewers might linger over the other figures in the painting, such as the entertainers or even the running children, the location of the trio of musicians at the very center of the painting suggests their importance, that their music is the backdrop to everything that's happening. All of the different elements in this scene show the comprehensive knowledge that the artist, Utamaro, had of the entertainment districts, the clientele, the geisha and their instruments, the different furnishings and locations. This scene even includes Utamaro's patron and publisher, Tsutaya Jizaburo, a somewhat mysterious, enigmatic figure who pulled the strings. Here, that reputation is conveyed by showing only his shadow, that is still larger than life. Part of Utamaro's success was his reputation for having an insider's perspective on the workings of the entertainment districts, because he himself had been born in a brothel. Now, whether that story is true or not, it has remained popular, partly due to scenes like this, intimate pictures of women from the sex districts, together with their children, and not performing for clients. Many of Utamaro's images are sexually voyeuristic, but this is something else, showing an unguarded and touching moment of motherly love. Such a scene is particularly poignant for us, as Tatsu-san himself was born in a geisha house. He has graciously offered to share photographs and music from his childhood, so that we can imagine his young life growing up among these women.
This was the kind of music I grew up with. As far as I can remember, I heard this music in the house. And, my childhood, my mother would do a okeiko of this kind of ozashiki shamisen music, and she would listen to Count Basie and Duke Ellington's record at night. So I grew up listening to and playing, performing classical Japanese ozashiki shamisen music just like this, and also listen to a lot of jazz music as far as I can remember. And I am sure anyone who grew up in a musical family have a similar experience as me, is that you already know the music and what it should sound like, what the music should sound like, and what to do with the music by the time you actually take the formal lesson. In my case, my auntie and my family member will teach me, and they will show me how to play the shamisen, but I already knew what the shamisen and what the song sounds like. I knew all the songs because I grew up listening to it. And I think that's a very, very interesting lineage and experience of the family music. And as you can see, all my family members still play our family music from late Edo period to today.
Thank you for sharing those family photos and music, and for giving us such a precious insight into your childhood. Now it's time to get experimental. This fascinating print triptych is of a genre known as Yokohama-e, or Yokohama Pictures. Yokohama is a large city near Tokyo, which was designated as an official port when the famous Black Ships appeared in 1853 and forced Japan to open to foreign trade. In 1868, the ruling shogunate would collapse and sovereignty would be restored to the emperor, who led a series of wide-ranging policies that remodeled Japanese institutions along Western lines. But this print was made several years before all this, in 1861, when there was a frenzy of curious excitement. The prominent stripes of the flag at the top left reveal that this is an American establishment, with a lively dinner party and plenty of drinking happening on the right sheet, beneath a display of Western paintings. But the focus of this image is the three women at the front, including a shamisen player from behind, as we have seen several times by now. Opposite her is a Western woman playing a violin-like instrument, but something isn't right. She's not playing with a violin bow, but with a shamisen bachi plectrum. This misunderstanding of the Western instrument on the part of the artist is an illustrative encapsulation of this moment, just 2 years after Japan opened to international trade. Such a party must have had plenty of misunderstandings and exchanges, visual, cultural, and verbal. Let this clash of cultures continue, as Tatsu-san will now play for us a contemporary electronic piece.
Kit-san, I totally agree with you. Sometimes we have to advance ourselves and experiment with the new things. And very often in Chicago, I do collaboration with contemporary, avant-garde, and creative music people, as well as visual artists and performance artists. I have a kind of a modified my shamisen sound with the electronics and electrifying shamisen. And here's my take on new world of electro shamisen music.
Thank you, Tatsu-san, for that digital spin on a classic instrument. And thank you all for coming to our Look and Listen program. We hope you enjoyed this insight into the world of a shamisen player, both in the past and today. I'd also like to thank Michael Wilpers, Hutomo Wikaksono, and the entire team who produces our shows. From all of us, we wish you health and happiness until our next program.